wait, everybody. Hello, welcome to July. I can't believe we're already at July. We are here today to talk about raising the bar, how to assess and improve job quality with your workforce. So this month, July, we recognize Disability Pride Month and National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, both powerful reminders of why inclusion, accessibility, and well-being matter in every workplace. And it's also Plastic Free July, which is a great time to think about small, sustainable changes as we enjoy our long Minnesota summer days, as many as we get that are bearable. Right now, we're in the muggy season, right? Um, July gives us a quick pause to reflect on how we're building workplaces where people to thrive. And since it also happens to be National Ice Cream Month, I hope that you find a moment to step outside, enjoy the sunshine, and treat yourself to a scoop of your favorite along the way. We are so happy to have you here today for an important and energizing conversation around job quality, what it is, why it matters, and how employers can assess and strengthen the quality of the jobs that they offer. In collaboration with the Governor's Workforce Development Board, who you will meet some staff members of today, we've been developing a statewide job quality framework, which is a tool designed to help employers take a clear look at what makes a job truly good and recognize where they're already strong and spot small, meaningful improvements that can make a big difference. The framework reflects input from employers, workers, and our workforce strategy consultant team and partners across Minnesota. And it's built to strengthen equity, competitiveness, and long-term workforce stability. Today's session, Raising the Bar, How to Assess and Improve Job Quality, will walk through the core components of the framework, why job quality matters for retention and competitiveness, that's hard to say, real employer examples, practical strategies you can take back to your organization, and a conversation with leaders who are advancing job quality in meaningful ways across the state. My name is Jessica Miller, and I'm the Director of Workforce Strategy for the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. Thank you so much for joining us today. Whether it's your first Workforce Wednesday or you're returning again, we are really happy that you're here with us today. Before we dive in, as Adela mentioned, we'd really love to get to know each one of you. Please take a moment in the chat to introduce yourself, your role, where you work, and answer this question. What is one example of job quality or practice or improvement that you've seen, big or small, that made a meaningful difference for workers? And I'll go first. There is a company in Southwest Minnesota that established a community of practice, and they had representation from all the different demographic and groups of people that they had within their workplace. And I think at one point in time, they indicated they had 42 different languages being spoken on their production floor. And so they had key leaders, personal leaders, not necessarily positional leaders, that they met with on a weekly basis. And they were just conversations to just chat with their workforce about what's going on, what's happening in their communities, and they would bring back information that their workforce really needed to know. And sometimes it was about access to healthcare. Sometimes it was about getting transportation supports needed. So it didn't necessarily have to be directly related to the work, but it was supportive of the workforce. And that's just a really great practice that I like to share with other people. As you will learn today, our consultation process is rooted and informed by data and is developed specifically with your company's needs and goals in mind. We serve as your guide through the process and convene workforce partners for support, share training grant opportunities, and continually check in to ensure progress is being made and assist in making adjustments along the way. When you work with us, you're automatically connected to a wide network of people and partners who work collaboratively for the success of our states, our regions, our communities, so that your business and our workforce can thrive. We don't do this work alone. It takes many people to bring success to these efforts. And there's a lot of folks that are in the audience today. So shout out if you are one of those folks that are out there doing the good work. Here it is, our lineup for 2026, and oh my goodness, we're already over halfway through. It was shaped by your feedback and designed to address workforce questions and challenges that you've shared with us. And as always, if something comes up, along the way, and there's a topic that you would like us to explore, please let us know. This series is built for you, and your insights help keep it current, useful, and responsive. I'd also like to encourage you to fill out the evaluation at the end of our session today, and we'll drop that link into the chat. These evaluations are essential. They really help us understand what's valuable, what you want more of, and how we can keep improving the space for employers across Minnesota. Also, as a reminder, this webinar is recorded and will be available to you on YouTube, careerforcemn.gov, along with slides and resources from today's session and all of our previous Workforce Wednesdays. We will be utilizing both the chat and Q&A features throughout our time today. Please jump in and ask questions, answer questions, share resources, and connect with one another. This community is one of the most valuable parts of Workforce Wednesday, and your engagement helps it grow. We have a packed agenda with some outstanding colleagues who are some of my favorites and who are leaders in this work, and I'm so excited for you to meet them today. So without further ado, it's my privilege to introduce you to Shayla Drake, our Northeast Workforce Strategy Consultant and lead collaborator on building the job quality framework on behalf of our team, as well as today's facilitator. So Shayla, take it away.
Thank you, Jessica. So I am really excited to be doing this today because we've been working really hard. So today's Workforce Wednesday is raising the bar, how to assess and improve job quality. So today's agenda is the job quality framework overview. So we're going to have Katie and Kevion, who I'm going to introduce here in a minute, give us the overview of the framework and the tools and resources that are currently in development, which we're super excited about, that are going to be rolling out through here the Governor's Workforce Development Board. And then we're going to have a few, hopefully, that will work, interactive polls that we're going to launch here through the webinar. And then we have our Q&A with some employers that we have on the call, Crystal and Eric. And then we'll have our unplugged session. So with that, first thing I'm going to do is introduce Katie and also launch our first poll, which is taking me a second. Here we go. Bear with me. I thought it was going to be smoother than that. Here we go. So first question that I have, what is your organization's level of awareness of job quality? While I introduce Katie and Kevion, who have been helping get all of this going. So Katie McClelland is the executive director of the Governor's Workforce Development Board, and Kevion Ellis is the Workforce Partnerships Coordinator of the Governor's Workforce Development Board. So while before we go to this next one, while we do this poll really quick, give it a second here and let people answer this. To the audience, what is everyone's organization's level of awareness with job quality currently, before we have Katie and Kevion give us the current overview of job quality through the GWDB? All right. This is great. Yay. So with that, Katie and Kevion, we're seeing that we've got about 57% of the audience that are aware, and about 19% of the audience that are minimally aware, and 3% that have no clue of what job quality is. So with that, we'll let y'all take it away.
Great. Maybe we should have also done a poll of who's familiar with the Governor's Workforce Development Board. So for those of you who are not, I am Katie McClelland. I'm the Executive Director of the Governor's Workforce Development Board here in Minnesota. And the GWDB, as we like to call it, which, really just rolls off the tongue, is a federally required workforce board, but it is appointed by the governor and led by employers to ensure that the work that we're doing helps provide an employer voice for what we need in our workforce system across the state. So we're really a convening body that brings together partners to understand where there are the biggest opportunities in our workforce system to improve performance, to ensure that we have alignment with our workforce and economic development priorities across the state, and really to identify and share best practices. And that's a big part of what we'll be talking about today is best practices around job quality. If we go to the next slide, you'll see that we mentioned our board is employer-led, so appointed by the governor, but Surya Iyer, who is the chair of our board, is the president and CEO of Polar Semiconductor, the first awarded chips manufacturer under the CHIPS and Science Act grants that came out under the Biden administration. And then we also have Delinda Washington, who is our vice chair and the chief people officer at Health Partners. The GWDB is also very focused on our Drive for 5 sectors in Minnesota, which are manufacturing, caring professions or healthcare, education, the trades, and technology. So many of our members on the board are employers from those sectors, but we also have representation from from state leadership for across our workforce development agencies. So while DEED is commonly thought of as one of our most important workforce development agencies, we also have representation from Department of Education, Department of Children, Youth and Families, Department of Labor and Industry, Office of Higher Education, all those partners that make up the workforce ecosystem, as well as the University of Minnesota and Minnesota State, and then community-based organizations or ethnic councils. I could keep going because we have one of the largest workforce boards in the country too, thanks in no small part to the great labor representation that we also have on the board. So one of the, if we go to the next slide, one of the big initiatives that the board has taken on over the last, it's almost a year now, that we have been working with partners from across the state to develop what our statewide workforce development strategies and goals are for the state. And this, again, is the idea with these goals is that all of our partners from across the state can look at one big North Star goal, and then we can prioritize and invest in these 5 pillars to help address that. So really, we want to be sure that Minnesota can lead our nation in building an equitable and future-ready workforce where everyone has the opportunity to succeed and every employer has the talent to grow. And our big North Star goal is getting 10,000 people into our labor force each year on average. And again, prioritizing those Drive for 5 sectors. And so you'll see that one of the 5 pillars is around high quality jobs that strengthen or sustain families and strengthen competitiveness. And so in order to make sure that we're all on the same page about what that means, our board has worked closely, and thanks in large part to Shayla for her work in helping to advance this, and also for a grant that we got from the Family and Workers Fund to advance some of this work around job quality. We have been doing a lot of engagement with partners to identify what are the big priorities around job quality and how can we make sure that we're all getting to a common set of understanding about what we're talking about when we talk about job quality. So if we go to the next slide, there's a lot of reasons why job quality matter. And I think as we think about the role for the board in job quality, it's really around trying to provide a framework for folks that are looking to provide high quality jobs and are wanting to have tools and resources to do that. And also providing tools and resources for individuals who are looking for jobs and trying to think, what is it that makes a good job? And so again, a lot of the work that we're doing is focused on frameworks and really thinking about how can we help to incentivize and identify and define what this framework looks like for job quality that, helps with provide security, opportunity, and economic advancement for workers, but also make sure that employers have tools that they need, that if they are looking to provide high quality jobs, they know how to do that. So I'm actually going to turn it over now to Kevion Ellis on our team, who is really leading this work and who has been a great partner with Shayla in advancing our job quality work. And I will say we are midway through getting this work off the ground. We have a framework that Kevion will share that's been approved by the board, but we're also using today as an opportunity to get feedback from you all on what matters for job quality and what we should be thinking about and what tools, resources, and things. So please keep that in mind as you are, as we're talking through the rest of this, because we do want your feedback along the way as well. So Kevion, can I pass it over to you?
Yeah, thanks, Katie. Hi,
Thank you.
everybody. Kevion Ellis, Workforce Partnerships Coordinator with the Governor's Workforce Development Board. Katie teed it off really well. So if folks have more questions about return on investment for job quality, we put together an article on it that goes more in depth. And Shayla is going to share that in the chat. And there also will be other supported links that will get shared along the presentation as well that go deeper into the benefits of job quality. But here is our board approved framework that focuses on 5 key pillars for where we really see the biggest opportunity for increasing job quality. And those are compensation and benefits, safe and stable working conditions, equitable hiring and career development, worker voice, empowerment, and respect. And this 5th bucket, sector specific metrics, is really a call out to highlight the unique complexities of every sector, really recognizing that every job quality strategy might not work for your respective industry, company, or even every job at your company, but it really creates an opportunity to evaluate unique and creative solutions that can solve those sector-specific challenges. And the intent of this framework is that it is a resource. And as resources are being developed, they're meant to be voluntary, stakeholder-informed resources to support wherever your organization is at in its job quality journey. So we can go to the next slide. So this is a draft and non-exhaustive list of ways employers can consider strengthening the quality of the jobs that they offer. Many of you probably already have implemented many of these strategies and more, so kudos to you. But I really want to stress that the goal of Minnesota's framework isn't to declare concrete ways that employers can strengthen job quality, but really to amplify and share ideas and best practices that are out there. And, again, we know that every industry, occupation, and work setting will be different. So the goal is really to evaluate what can you do to make a difference for your workforce and workplace, and how can you make your workplace as high quality and competitive as possible. So I won't run through each of these considerations, but the slides will be shared afterwards. And again, there will be links shared as well that will provide additional insights. So we can go to the next slide. So just to give some background on how the framework itself was developed and is being applied, we have had staff at DEED who have been engaged in job quality efforts over the last several years, including the Good Jobs Principle initiative that took place back in 2020, and Results for America's job quality cohort, which Shayla took part in, and she's been, as Katie mentioned, super essential to this work. So job quality is not a new effort of the state, but the framework has created a new opportunity to align how we communicate and invest in job quality statewide. So both through the previous work that has happened at DEED and the GWDB's work over the last several years, learning from other states and organizations, doing stakeholder feedback, and really working this through our board process. The framework was created and adopted by the board last November. So really since then, we've been able to embed job quality into key workforce initiatives and priorities. And we're currently in the process of developing and refining resources and plan to begin launching some of those later this year. So we'll share a bit about that in a moment. And as we continue gathering feedback from key stakeholders, especially employers, we hope that you will take and utilize these resources to create and strengthen high quality jobs. And the ultimate goal really is to continue investing in ways to support employers and workforce partners and incentivize engagement through grants and other state opportunities. So we can go to the next slide. And so through the GWDB Sector Partnership Committee that is made up of employers, local workforce boards, labor, education, training, community partners, We have been developing and refining resources to support the Job Quality Initiative, and those include developing universal statewide metrics and benchmarks that are really aimed at helping employers understand how they compare across the state in different job quality categories, and to help us understand where can we be targeting supports. And then we're also working on an employer toolkit to help employers assess the quality of their jobs, where there are challenges internally, and where there are opportunities to improve across different job quality pillars. And then we're also working on a new train-the-trainer grant opportunity that we anticipate launching early next year to equip local workforce partners with the tools and training to support employers in implementing job quality strategies. And then we're also working on things like launching a resource hub that will host best practices, tools, and be a place to seek technical assistance for employers. And then we're also considering a badging system to highlight high quality job employers who have taken strides in creating and strengthening high quality jobs. So a lot more to come here. But if we could go to the next slide. There are many ways to engage as we continue building out the resources. We'd love to hear your feedback today on the webinar, or you can follow up via email. We have those on the last slide. Also, we would love to hear directly from employers who already have strong job quality practices in place, so that we can highlight those and learn from them. And we also have our sector partnerships committee underneath the GWDB that I mentioned before. If anyone is interested in joining the committee or just following GWDB activities, please reach out to us. And then next slide, please. We quickly just want to give a shout out to the Family and Workers Fund for their support in making this work possible. Their partnership has really enabled us to expand capacity, leverage insights from other states who are working on job quality, and access technical assistance. So we're very thankful for their support and partnership. And then there's our emails. Thank you for allowing us to present today. We're happy to answer any questions, and I will turn it back over to you, Shayla.
Thank you, Kevion. So we're gonna pause here, and I'm going to take a moment to just ask you and Katie a couple of questions before I move over to the panelist questions. So the first question that I have is for, stop sharing here. I'll start presenting back in a minute. First question that I have, I think, will be for Katie. So Katie, what prompted the GWDB to take on the job quality as a priority initiative? Were there specific challenges or opportunities in the labor market that made this like the right moment?
Yeah, we've been interested in job quality for a number of years, and I would say that previously had been using the Good Jobs framework that was created by the U.S. Department of Labor and Department of Commerce. But since that has faded away, we still wanted to have this be a priority for our state, but realized that without a clear framework or structure, everyone's talking about high quality jobs and job quality, but we didn't all know that we were all talking about the same thing. And we didn't have a roadmap for how to get there. And so that's when it became a GWDB priority to make sure that we could clarify and define this together and identify what this framework is and how to make sure that in our state, we all are kind of singing from the same songbook, as you might say, around job quality. And I think, again, in thinking about the role and purpose of the Governor's Workforce Development Board, it really is to be convening partners around common sets of challenges and priorities. And in Minnesota, for quite some time, we've had a pretty tight labor market where employers are struggling to find talent and people are struggling to find jobs that connect with their priorities. And so I think this has been a way for us to really think about how to make sure that we're building a framework that is, as Kevion mentioned, flexible, but also providing kind of that North Star and best practices for how to provide high quality jobs that will help improve recruitment and retention and also just help employers think about, maybe they hadn't thought about some of the different levers that are there or some of the ways that they could be boosting job quality. So trying to make sure that we're giving everyone the best resources that we can to improve work.
Thank you. That was helpful. And Kevion, you touched on this a little bit in the presentation, but do you want to maybe tell us a little bit more for the audience? But like, how did employers and other stakeholders like shape the development of the framework? And what did the GWDB learn from that engagement to like how we got here?
Yeah, definitely. So stakeholder input was very essential to the process. As Katie noted earlier, a core role of the GWDB is to be a convener. So over the past year, we really incorporated a job quality into several existing board functions, including our quarterly board meetings where we really workshopped what is the purpose of the framework, and also through our sector partnerships committee where we really dug into the weeds of the language and intent. But we also, took the framework to other stakeholders who may not typically engage in a board process. So we held in-person stakeholder feedback sessions over the year, especially in targeted sectors like climate and infrastructure, to really get free feedback on the framework itself and how various partners could see themselves utilizing this resources. So we got a lot of good insights from that. I think one of the biggest learnings that we got from it, and Katie might have a different answer, but was really around refining our communications around the framework and what was the core purpose of it. And that's really that alignment piece. We had employers early on in the process who had fears that this was going to be a mandate, which is not. It's a voluntary resource. But on the other side, we had labor partners who felt like the language wasn't strong enough. And so that really pushed us to clean up and articulate the purpose of this framework and strategy in playing a supportive role. We're not going to force employers to participate in job quality, but we do want to incentivize engagement in the action that we want to see in our workforce system. So, and we feel very confident that employers will benefit from investing resources into strengthening job quality. And we're here to support that.
So one final question before I move on to our panelists, and this will piggyback off of what you just said. So like looking ahead, how will the GWDB know if the framework is succeeding? So like what outcomes or signals will you like be paying attention to like know if it's doing its thing?
Van, do you want to take that or should I?
Either one. Hey, either one, you can take that one.
Yeah, well, I think that's the part of what we're building right now, right? And this is, again, a great opportunity to engage and connect, because as we're building out this framework, we're also building out what are the metrics to make sure that you can measure job quality and if it's being adopted and implemented. And I think we're also simultaneously looking at many opportunities to not only acknowledge or have employers certify that they are providing high quality jobs, but then even as a next step, thinking about how can we create incentives in grant programs and in others or prioritization for partnerships that are providing pathways to high quality jobs that have been demonstrated to have pieces of these framework, we're saying, and even in other aspects of our statewide goal, for example, around sector partnerships. As we're building out sector partnerships, we want to confirm that that the employers in those sector partnerships have adopted 3 of the 5 job quality framework elements. So there's a number of ways that we're looking at, again, in the process of building those metrics right now, but then also looking at once we have employers that are validating that they're providing this high quality jobs framework, how can we make sure that there are financial incentives and rewards for providing these high quality jobs as well.
Yeah, I echo that. And I would just add that, I think the metrics in the long term will tell us over time if we're being successful. So excited to get those out. And then I also think that in the short term, we're really excited to pilot that train the trainer grant early next year, because that will tell us directly from local workforce partners on the ground and who will be working with those employers, whether or not the framework and associated resources are beneficial. It will let us know, do we need to refine something? Do we need to expand this part of job quality? So it's super excited to learn from that early next year. And yeah, I totally agree with Katie. And I think a big signal we'll be paying attention to is employer engagement. How are folks utilizing these resources? Are they seeking technical assistance? Are they reporting back the benefit of this initiative? So we are really eager to get a lot of these resources moving.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much. With that, I would be excited to see outcomes. Metrics would be great that align with the outcomes, and the fact that it's not a mandate, completely optional, and the fact that it's fluid, right? It's building, it's stacking on it itself, it's building upon itself, best practices, is it too good to be true? I don't know. Let's see. Fingers crossed. I don't know. But that's just because hopeful me. So we'll see. But I'm super excited about it. I mean, I'm over the moon excited about it. I can't wait for it to roll out. So we had our Q&A. So with that, we're moving on to our panelist discussion with, thank you, Katie on, look at me, merging y'all together, Katie and Kevion. So now we're going to move on to our panelist discussion with Crystal Ayala and Eric Johnson from, well, it did not like me. There we go. From K. Johnson Construction. So Crystal is a strategic director of talent acquisition with over 21 years experience, including 16 years leading recruitment in teams within healthcare industry. Specializes in building high-performing teams, building strong candidate pipelines, optimizing recruitment processes to attract and hire top-tier healthcare professionals. Crystal excels at aligning talent initiatives with organizational goals, advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion, and fostering culture rooted in collaboration and excellence. Her free time, Crystal enjoys attending concerts and stand-up comedy shows, exploring new restaurants, and spending quality time with friends, family, and her two beloved dogs, Indy and Peach. Currently the vice president at K. Johnson Construction. Eric Johnson is a commercial general contracting and concrete masonry contractor in Sauk Rapids, Minnesota. He oversees the business operations related in estimating, project management, contract execution, and construction management, employee development, and new business interactions. Since joining the company in 2000, K. Johnson Construction, he has doubled in size and has ambitious plans to continue growth in and around the central Minnesota area. He is also co-owner with his wife, Tessa, of Harvester Square, a wedding and event venue in the east side of St. Cloud. He is also co-owner of ESG Companies, a real estate development firm dedicated to the economic development and the uplift of east side of St. Cloud through building renovation and business attraction to bring back a once vibrant, thriving neighborhood. Outside of business dealings, Eric is part of the Governor's Workforce Development Board and also sits on the Central Minnesota's Community Foundation Board. Eric is a graduate of Sauk Rapids High School and Gustavus Adolphus College 2017. Eric and his wife, Tessa, reside in Otsego, Minnesota with their 20-month-old daughter, Zoe. So with that, we're going to have our panelist discussion. So I'm going to stop sharing. Welcome, welcome. So hopefully, Eric and Crystal, you can share your cameras.
Cameras on. Happy to be here.
All right. Yay. Okay. Perfect.
Should be good to go on my end.
Yay. All right. Yay. Okay, cool. Everyone's coming in good. All right. So first question that I'm going to start with is to both of you. We'll start with Crystal and we'll go to Eric. Is what does job quality, like overarching job quality, mean within your organization? And how has that definition evolved over the past few years?
Yeah, what a great kickoff question. You know, when I think about job quality, at Children's Minnesota, it really aligns with our employee value proposition, or the EVP. This is what employees can expect in return for their energy, their efforts, their ideas, and their support. And for us, it's what we call the handshake between the organization and our employees. Similar to the job quality, it is one of our strongest tools for attracting, engaging, and retaining talent, because it really grounds us in our values, our culture, and the real employee experience.
Sure. Hi, everybody. For job quality on our end, we're in construction. So ultimately, the number one job quality trait is safety on our end. Our employees are in any and all types of projects, around the central Minnesota community. For our employees, having a predictable schedule is one big thing on our end. We work year round, in all months, all seasons, all weathers. So when it's 95 degrees next week, our guys are going to be out and about on different projects. But from the quality standpoint, it's predictable because they can average between 35 and 45 hours a week on their end. Yes, could they go to a different construction company and work 60, 70 hours a week? Absolutely they can. But burnout's a real thing in construction, and we've really honed that in on our end to make sure that we have, consistent schedules so that they know, where they're going and how many hours they can expect. And that has evolved in construction over the years.
Absolutely. And I completely, like, when I'm hearing Crystal originally, that the whole EVP, like, I'm hearing, yeah, ding, ding, ding. Like, I hear it when I'm talking. And Eric, what you're saying with the schedules and all of that, that's falling right in line with what I'm hearing with businesses. A lot of times, originally, first, it was just, organizational fit or workplace culture or benefits. It's more than that now, right? It's everything and then some. It's the whole kitchen sink, right? And so that, in my mind, to me, that's job quality, right? It's everything, right? How do we do everything at one time, right? And to me, it's EVP plus, right? It's that's in my mind. So when I'm looking, I'm going to do the next question. And the next question, we're going to do a poll. So we're going to include the audience in the next question. I'm going to ask it slightly different way to you all than the audience, just so we can get the question. But to Crystal and Eric, but here's the audience question. The audience question is, has your organization worked to improve job quality? We already know the answer for your side, but what approaches has helped you attract talent in a tight labor market, without relying solely on wages, right? So what approaches have you all relied on other than wage increases?
Eric, you want to start with this one?
Sure. Yeah, I can go ahead. Over the past few years, and this goes back to, kind of the changing environment within construction too. We're really, really flexible with people's times and schedules. Primarily our start times are between 6:30 and 7 every day of the week. But if somebody needs to bring a child to childcare or have additional appointments, like, we're really flexible with that. We just structure our teams, accordingly to where every Monday, our guys are given a schedule for all their employees underneath them to say, like, okay, I need to leave at 2:00 this day or 10:00. And, we're really flexible to shift guys around that way. And again, that's just part of the changing nature, where maybe 20 years ago in construction, like, that would never fly. Be like, figure it out on your own. Because it's hard, and you can't control the weather, and you can't control other trades and make sure things are on time. But, having that and telling people that, when they're coming in for interviews or onboarding, people really appreciate that. And they really like that, to know that there is that flexibility within those means that they can take.
Something that we're doing within Children's Minnesota is we're looking to our employees to help be our brand ambassadors. And how are our employees sharing their experience about what it's like to be an employee at Children's Minnesota through storytelling? This is something that allows applicants to hear directly from our team about what it's like to work at Children's, what keeps them here, what excites them about the work that they do. And we highlight these stories through multiple videos on our social media. So thinking about highlighting certain roles, share a day in the life, adding this to our career page, and this along with campaigning to passive talent, continuing to showcase why Children's is an employer of choice, has really helped contribute to our application increase. And so within the last year, we have seen a spike in about 28.47% in our applications from these efforts. So if you're thinking about ways to attract, I think asking your employees to help share their experience really gives the insight to the market into what's important.
So piggybacking off of what you just said, how does an organization ensure workers feel heard? What mechanisms actually lead to those kind of changes, right? Like I see people all the time say, well, we do surveys.
Sure. Crystal, I can start here again.
Sure.
We've recently over the past few years, with our newest employees, and typically, they're going to range between 18 and 25 years old, and it's more likely than not, it's probably their first, career or position they've ever held. When we do review time for a new employee, they get a 30, a 60, and a 90-day review, just to give them feedback on how things are going and say, here's maybe some tips and tricks, you got to pick up on better, or maybe you just got to think ahead a little bit more. But then during the annual review process, we do 2 a year, typically at, sometime midsummer here coming up, and then annually, kind of at the end of the year. Their immediate foreman and supervisor has a form that they fill out for all their employees underneath them. And then the employee actually grades themselves on all of their skills, anything between attendance, communication, physical skills for, laboring or concrete finishing or items. And then they review them together with their supervisor's comments. And it really shows, we didn't really know how it was going to go, but when we implemented it, a lot of the scores were very similar, and it allowed the employee to provide their feedback on how they think they're doing. And then more recently, in the last, probably year or so, we've basically developed about a 30 criteria, list of different trades and different items that the employee is going to grade themselves on. And it allows them to be creative and to be, maybe here's what I want to focus on more. And then underneath that, then we have all the career opportunities underneath it, in the future that they can strive for. So it really allows them to have that freedom to kind of choose, like, here's the different roles that, I want to focus on. It's not just us telling them, here's what you're going to do.
So, okay, so let's say along that same vein, what steps are you taking to ensure that opportunities, say advancement opportunities or skill development, are, say, equitable, and that's what they want to do, are across the board, right? How can you, and what steps are you taking to like ensure that?
Sure. So within each, kind of breakdown, the roles, obviously it starts out with just, entry level field labor, and then there's increments and steps of all the different positions that they can branch out from there. And so within the grading sheet, they're kind of evaluating themselves and like, well, maybe my skill set's more based in technology, and maybe it's more robotics on the construction side. Well, here's, kind of that different avenue that maybe they want to pursue. Or maybe it's more, operation of forklifts or different items within there. So it allows them to, kind of tell us, you're like, here's what I am interested in. And then we kind of help shape their progression through their career here as well going forward. So we rely heavily on, and sometimes it's hard for a 19-year-old kid to tell you what they want to do, but you find it allows them to really be creative and maybe they want to try a bunch of different things till they really figure out, hey, I really enjoy doing this. So we rely heavily on their feedback as well.
So it's interest driven, not skill driven. Well, not skill driven, but interest driven through the system.
Yeah, and it does. You do get cases too where, maybe we think somebody's really good at form setting or running a laser, but maybe they don't like doing that too. We're never going to force somebody to do it, but maybe it's more in a supervisory role where they're leading a team of 3 or 4 other people and they're coaching the newest employees that come up too. So each individual employee is going to be different, and finding, which levers to pull and which cogs to kind of turn the right way to get them to appreciate that too.
Nice. Okay. So I want to ask this question while we're in this session before we go into Unplugged while we have the time, right? So I'm going to ask this to both of you all. What advice would you give to employers who maybe want to start improving job quality? Because employers are all doing stuff, right? They have benefits, they have things, right? But they actually want to really start looking at it as, okay, what is our employee value proposition? What is our greater benefits that we're doing to our employees, right? What is our status of quality of our jobs, right? What are we truly offering to our employers, right? So if they want to really try to say, okay, we want to elevate and compete and become employer of choice, that kind of thing, and promote on that level, but they don't even know how to start or where to begin, right? What would be your first recommendation, or what would you say where they should start? We could start with Crystal.
Sure. It can feel overwhelming, right? Like, how do you even start this? My advice would be to really listen to your employees and take the time to understand their experience. So for us, we partnered with a third-party vendor that supported our engagement survey. So they help us manage that process. And we partnered with them just to your point, like, how do we even start this? And the first step that we did was we gathered employee feedback through focus groups. So those conversations really allowed us to better understand what's attracting people to us, what's keeping them engaged, and then what components of their work experience matter most. So it helps us, understand more than what an engagement survey can, because we're getting that raw feedback. Then in addition to that, we conducted research on external market trends that affected healthcare industry. So when we're thinking about what's important to a healthcare employee, it was mentioned earlier, based off the sector partnerships, that might be different than what's important in Eric's line of work. So we need to understand in the market, what are those trends? What is this trend telling us? And then how can we identify challenges and opportunities that could influence the employee experience now in the future? We also did take a look at our engagement survey. I know you mentioned that topic earlier, but that gives us feedback, and we really want to understand how they feel about working at Children's.
My thing on the survey is, what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? My thing is how many employers do surveys just to do surveys and do nothing with the surveys?
Yeah. Yep. You have to use that information to be actionable. And that's what we wanted to do. Yep. So we took the survey feedback, we took the focus group feedback, the market research, and then we were able to complete a clearer picture of that employee experience, and then make sure that it aligns with our already established mission, values. It's not to replace those, but it's to align with those, and help strengthen and support them, so that we can really make sure that we have those connections. And one thing that I will say is that there was a comment earlier, I also heard that this isn't fluid. Changes happen. What's important to an organization happens. What's important to employees changes. And so how are we continuously reassessing these things, understanding what the needs of our employees are to make sure they feel that support, that it aligns with our organizational mission, and it allows us continue to support the kids of the community?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of echo basically what Crystal had said. I mean, in the construction world, we're all kind of vying for the same candidates, around the central Minnesota community. So for on our end, we keep really close tabs on, what are the wage rates within, the central Minnesota community. We do obviously take a lot into the employee feedback forms on their reviews and their 6-month reviews as well. Another important piece that we've really implemented too is, when an employee does choose to leave, we conduct exit interviews if they're willing and able to do that, but we get a lot of very valuable information because maybe there's items that we don't know about, that maybe they don't like doing a certain task or working on a certain crew or something else, or maybe there's some internal strife. So taking that information back, and then like Shayla had said, like you need to implement action into it. If there's problems that you're just kind of glancing over that you think you're doing right, but in reality you're doing wrong, well, nothing's really going to change either. So we take a lot of emphasis on that as well, because we do learn a lot. For an employer that's starting out, just picture yourself, where do you want to be 1 year from today or 5 years from today, and how do you want your organization to be perceived, both internally and externally? For us, we want to be viewed as reputable, on time, and provide quality construction services. And then internally, we want to be viewed as a safe, equitable, and then respectful workforce as well. So where do you want to see your organization be at, in the future? And then take the steps back and start at the beginning and say, well, how am I going to get there? So that's the steps that we've really taken here.
Yeah. I tell people, if you look at job quality, say, especially the sector specific stuff, say, if I have to compare my business to another business and I have to ask my employees, say, so-and-so's benefits, compare it to so-and-so's benefits, to so-and-so's benefits, that's the conversation. When you're doing a comparative analysis and you're asking and you're saying, well, what about so-and-so, and what about so-and-so, and the so-and-so has this, and so-and-so has this, and so-and-so has this, but so-and-so has that. That's the conversation. It's the so-and-sos have this, that, and this, and that. And you say, well, can we do that? Does that work at our organization? Why doesn't it fit in our organization? And what's the best fit for our employees? For people to say, we can be the best this compared to any other of that, and everyone will come work here. And I think that's the conversation that people need to have, but nobody wants to ask that question to say, hey, have you looked at other places to see, are they better than us? Are we falling short than our competitors in other areas? Are you happy working here? Everyone wants to just think that they're better. Sometimes there's room for improvement when you are sometimes doing really amazing things, but sometimes there are other areas for improvement. And I think that's sometimes when people don't want to recognize that even though you are doing great things in your workplace, there are still reasons why you can't retain your employees, because the competition is sometimes doing just maybe one thing a little bit better, or a different, and maybe not even be better, it's different, a different benefit, a different option. And sometimes they're even free benefits the businesses aren't even paying for. They're just opting into different benefits that you hadn't considered because you didn't know that they were benefits that your employees were wanting or needing, right? So they're just conversations that people aren't having. And so that's why I really like it. It's opening up the conversation to the right fit at the right time for the right organization to hopefully retain people longer. So with that, I would love to hand it over to Miss Adeshewa. I'm going to pop it in because we're going to transition to our Unplugged, and I'm going to hand my fantastic panelists on to Adeshewa for our Unplugged session. Let me, as soon as I get up the presentation, if it will cooperate. Technical difficulties. Okay. Give me 1 second, everybody. Is not wanting to cooperate. There we go. Resume. Found it. Okay. There we go. Adeshewa.
All right, thank you, Shayla. As usual, great conversation. For those who do not know me, I am Adeshewa Adesiji. I am the Workforce Strategy Consultant for the Metro area, and I will be facilitating next month's Workforce Wednesday webinar. The topic is opportunities for all, reimaging workforce development, or reimagining workforce development, sorry. Registration for that webinar is now open, and the link to register should be put in the chat pretty soon. So for next month's webinar, we'll explore how workforce organizations, partners, and leaders across sectors can embed equity into every aspect of workforce development to create inclusive, sustainable outcomes for all job seekers. And so I think it's going to be a really good conversation, and hopefully everyone will attend and join and listen to not only myself, but a really good group of experts on that subject. So with that, we will go over to the Unplugged. And I have the wonderful opportunity of asking these wonderful panelists, Eric, Crystal, Katie, and Kevian, say that 5 times. No, to ask some questions pertaining to today's topic. So I've been listening, I've been taking some notes, so hopefully we won't be repeating some of the questions, maybe some slight variations of questions, but not repeating the ones from the discussion. So let's go ahead. And the first question I have, it was something that Shayla had mentioned during the panel discussion about sometimes businesses will issue surveys and do surveys upon surveys upon surveys upon surveys, collect the information, but do nothing with it, which we find that is just a waste of time to have that information and not use that to improve job quality or, improve any other practices within that company. A question for you, Eric and Crystal. When you're doing these surveys, when you're trying to find and trying to collect information for job quality or improving, the culture at your company, I guess, what is the level or the importance of the staff's voice in developing job quality? Like, do you as a business, do you rely on having conversations, directing those surveys to staff? I always find that one of the best ways to figure out if you want to improve culture or improve job quality is to talk to those that are working at the company already. One, as you look at improving job quality, what's the influence in the level of importance to have staff be involved in that process? And 2, for businesses that haven't or just starting out with that journey of developing job quality or improving, job qualities at their company, what would you say about getting them to look at and talk to their staff and getting feedback from their staff for that work? That was a really long, drawn out question, but hopefully I think you guys got what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think it's 100%. It's so important to have your team leaders and your management, whoever else is managing people beneath them, to really be involved in those decision-making processes, because I don't know what the order of operation is. People can only manage 7 people beneath them until they get overstressed, or like I can't go out and make what's going to make X person's career or job quality better, like, because I don't I don't interact with them on a daily basis. I don't know the skills that they have or what they're doing on a daily basis. So we rely heavily on our foreman and on our direct management to help craft those decision-making powers. On the flip side, it's also really important for me as a business owner to be involved in making sure that I'm understanding the responses of what's going on. And I would really encourage, every organization out here is to get either the ownership or a very high level executive, because if they think things are all, sunshine and blue skies every day of the week, but they don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, there's a huge disconnect, and then you're going to continue to see that with upper level management and the daily operations. So getting somebody involved on the high end, within your companies to really figure out like what are the responses, what are our employees saying, and what are external employees or ex-employees saying as they leave here too. It's really important to get them involved as well, I think.
I agree with that. And, something at Children's Minnesota that's been super impactful is that we are a continuous improvement organization. So we really encourage our employees to share ideas, solve problems, think about meaningful changes that can be done to improve our culture, our operations, our patient and family experience. And we give the space to do that in many forums. So it's town halls and daily team huddles. I mentioned the engagement survey. We even have leaders that have open and executives that have open office hours just to have conversations. What are the things that you're thinking about? And I think another thing that's been really impactful is we do have 9 employee resource groups. Again, so all of these different ways, because everybody likes to share their feedback differently, provide those spaces for connection, for advocacy, and for shared learning. And because we're continuous improvement, it's really important that we model that through our different processes to make sure that we are following up on all of those ideas that have been shared.
And so, thank you both. Eric, just a follow-up question for you. And I know that you had mentioned that, it's important to get feedback from management about the job quality, but even going further down to, the entry level workers, how important is it to get influence from them? Because sometimes, and we hate to admit it, but it needs to be said that sometimes there is that disconnect between even, those frontline entry level and that first level of management. And so, as a business owner, and just for yourself and for other employers on that are listening to this webinar, how important is it to go as far down, for lack of better words, as far down as you can to get that feedback, to get the perspective, to make sure that, the job qualities, or as Crystal had mentioned, continuous improvement, to make sure that that is a success.
For sure. I mean, that's what it boils down to, right? Like if you don't have your people, you don't have an organization, or you don't have a company. I think what we've done that we found is successful in our industry, in our line of work, like I said, is really having that self-evaluation of the skills of what that individual employee has. On the flip side with that, they can provide responses that maybe their direct manager or their next supervisor doesn't see, like, hey, I don't think it's right that maybe we have to work till 5 o'clock on a Friday. Maybe can we work till 2 o'clock on a Friday instead and start earlier? Like those are just little changes that, we've implemented here over the years. But, learning to listen and learning to interact with that is a really big part.
Mhm. I like that, learning to listen. Thank you. So, how often do you, or should you, as a company, as a business owner, and as a company, revise, the job quality? I think you might have some companies saying, okay, we need to only do this once, and then once we have, our list of job qualities, and we're done, and this will, work forever. And unfortunately, those are companies that end up struggling in the long term, because they haven't looked at, going back to what you said, Crystal, that continuous improvement. So, how often should you revise, have those discussions, do the feedback with staff and management, to make sure that you have strong job quality, realistic job quality, a list of job qualities for your company.
I can start that one. We're on year 3 of kind of mapping out again our job quality, our EVP. And when I say that, it doesn't mean we haven't had it before, right? But we really shifted our focus because of the pandemic. It kind of forced us to. And so I think as an organization, like Eric mentioned, you have to listen, and at least on a year basis, right? How are things looking different than they did in the past? What is the data telling us? Is it meeting the goals that we have set in terms of the experience we're offering our employees? If it's not, dive deep, look at the data, seek to understand, ask more questions. So I think in a sense, we're sort of at the mercy with what our workforce is telling us. And as those things change, grab a hold of it and ask the questions. There's really no check the box on how often you have to do it. I would say at a year minimum, because things constantly change, but really lean on the data to help you understand if it's meeting where you want to be as an organization, as a workforce, or if tweaks have to be made along the way.
Yeah, kind of same as what Crystal had echoed there, but you're always kind of doing it, right? I mean, you're always listening to changes as they occur. You'd be surprised, really. I mean, we always thought, being in construction, like we always thought the most important quality or for people coming here is obviously a safe workforce, but then, how much are they getting paid for their wage? And maybe that was the case 10, 15, 20 years ago. What we're finding is like a lot of are they Zoomers now? I think is the correct terminology for 18 to 25-year-olds. Like we're learning that wage really isn't up there as high as maybe some of the other, is there opportunities for advancement? Is there opportunities for leadership? What can they take ownership and take action on for themselves? And that's really what we're finding is a really changing dynamic on that behalf too. And it changes every day, right? And Crystal knows that as well as I do too. So, but really kind of fine tuning and figuring out like what are the next generations of workers looking for?
Thank you. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to give you two a break because I know I've just been asking you some questions and just kind of firing back and doing a deeper dive of some of the questions. So actually, I now want to direct my next question to Katie, Kevion, and I'm actually going to put Shayla on the spot too, because she's working closely with Kevion with the job quality considerations. Yeah, she is not too happy. Surprise, Shayla. Okay, so I'm looking at the draft of the job quality considerations. So we have compensation and benefits, safe and stable working conditions, equity, hiring, and career development, worker voice empowerment and respect, and then sector-specific metrics. So here's my question to the three of you. Although this is a draft, are there any considerations that we're overlooking? Is this where it ends, or is there likely more that we're not considering from these five?
I thought about that too, but when you think about it, like us as workforce strategy consultants, when we think about themification of our work, almost everything that we talk about falls into one of the 5 themes. Doesn't matter almost what the problem is, it always falls into one of the 5 themes. Every employer we work with, every problem they have, and they have 1,000,001 problems and they're all different. It always falls into one of those 5 themes. Same thing here with these 5 pillars, right? That's the same thing. So we did the same thing. So we did a lot of due diligence to really structure them in a way that as they grow, they fall within that themification mindset, right? That's how we built it. If that helps at all. with that.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that, I mentioned that we kind of we were originally using the U.S. Department of Labor and Department of Commerce's Good Jobs principles. And I think with that, they had 7 or 8 different kind of buckets of job quality features. And I think we looked at that and consolidated a bit. And then also one thing that is unique about the Minnesota model too is kind of the sector specific bucket that we have.
But they're all still represented, Katie. So even though they're consolidated, they're all still represented. So I just want to caveat to that. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Because I think to Shayla's point in the themes where it's like, these are things that kind of work together and really build off of each other. And so really there's kind of 4 big universal buckets and then the sector specific area too, where it's kind of how do you build into this role and into this sector. And I think we found that narrowing the scope, sometimes if you have so many different things, if you're kind of listing everything, it's hard to figure out how you can do anything. So I think that that's where we tried to take some of the best practices that we had seen and also looked at what other states are doing or have done in the job quality space and built off of that to make this, try to make it as easily understandable and digestible as possible. And I will also note that, we've seen one of the things that the GWDB does is look at what other states are doing too. And I've been really proud of Minnesota because other states have started to kind of back away, especially as the labor market is loosening a bit, have started to move away from a focus on job quality. But in Minnesota, something that seemed prominent for our business community, our labor, everyone was still really, or has been still really engaged and on board with the importance of job quality. So I think that's a testament to how great our state is and the employers and opportunities that they're providing in our state, that this continues to be a major priority in the state of Minnesota.
Vivian?
Yeah, I'll just
Anything
add
to
that. Yeah. I think it's specifically with the consideration slide that you're referring to, we really debated, like, do we even call out some of the ideas that employers can consider? And, I just want to iterate that, these are really just meant to be ideas for consideration. It's a non-exhaustive list. There are tons of things that employers could do and think about in terms of, how do we grow our job quality? And it really comes down to focusing on your respective environment, your respective, workplace, and like, what are those changes that you should consider? So this is really meant to just be a ideating tool for thinking about, like, we could in the, worker voice empowerment and respect bucket, like, these are some things that we might consider that might spark some ideas around, like, okay, putting it into context of our workplace, this is something we could consider, or our sector, this is a real challenge. So that's really where we hope to create those additional tools, like the employer toolkit that, really kind of pushes employers to think about those hard questions. What are we doing right? Where are we already succeeding? And where are the challenges? Where are the gaps in where we could be doing a better job at supporting our workers? So again, just really meant to be ideas.
Okay. So before I go continue, Amy, I do see that your hand is up. So I do know that you have a question, but let me just ask a follow-up question and then I'll allow you to unmute your mic. So I just want to acknowledge that we do see that your hand is up. So looking at the job quality considerations, so one of the reasons why I asked that question was, as someone that's part of the BIPOC community, looking at making sure that there are that diversity is something that's included. Now I see that equitable hiring and career development is one of those considerations. My concern is, yes, we don't want to have so much that it becomes overwhelming. So Katie, completely agree with you. When you have so much, it's like you don't know where to start, and then you end up not completing anything because you don't really know where to start. But at the same time, looking at, diversity and equity, there's some differences with that too. So that's why I was asking, okay, is this all of the considerations? Is there ones that are missing. And then Kevin, you had mentioned, there's a plethora of different considerations that could have been included in here. So then a follow-up question to that is, how would an employer that's looking at job quality considerations, let's say instead of 5, let's say there's a possibility of having, 20, there's 25 different considerations that are available. And if you're only looking at 5, how do you determine which are the top 5? How do you determine which ones
What do you mean 25? What do you mean?
Well,
the
no, I said
25
as an
consider-
example,
Oh.
let's say there was 25 different considerations for job quality that were available that could
Mhm.
help to improve the workplace of your business. How do you consider which ones to go
Those
for versus which
25
ones to put
might
on the side?
fall under within those 5 is what we're trying to say, because the way we've done it, because originally there were 7, those 2 are now within those 5.
So, and what I'm trying to say is, let's say that you can't do that. Let's say that there are, let's narrow it down. Let's say there's 10.
If we
There's
get there,
10.
we'll cross that bridge when we get there, because at this point, so far, everything that we've evaluated to those all of the benefits so far fit into even like you were talking about DEI and equity stuff. We have the representative bucket for that. So that's what I'm saying. Like, and any spin-off programs that they want to create would fall within that category. So that's what I'm saying. Like, that could be 50 or 100 different programs could fall within that one. So that's what I'm saying. If we get to a point to where within the 5 don't fit a thing, then we would need to have that conversation. I 100% agree with you. But that's the way we built it, is because they themified in a way to where everything did fit within those 5 buckets. You see what I'm saying? But I get
also
what you
think
mean.
job quality is really
Yeah.
important and the framework is really important, but it's one of the many elements that we're looking at for the workforce development system overall. So I
They're
think
not
especially
picking only 5, because
Yeah.
like I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, because you're not picking only 5 things. You're saying these are 5 categories, and we have 100 programs within these 5 categories. It's categorization of it. We're not limiting it. We just had to find a way to categorize it.
Okay. No, I think that's not really, I don't know if I'm getting getting my point across or my question across. It is, you can consolidate, and then it comes to a point in time where you cannot consolidate anymore. And you have. And so let's say after the consolidating, let's say you have, instead of 25, let's make it lower. Let's say you have 10. You have 10 different categories of job considerations. Just follow me with this. You have 10, you can't consolidate anymore. You have 10. And so going back to what Katie said, you don't want to start with a lot, because if you start with too much, you're not going to actually start anything and you won't be able to come up with a finished product. So let's say you have these 10. How do businesses determine out of those 10 which ones to start with first? Like how do you create that hierarchy with that? That's what my question is what would be
Crystal and Eric. I would ask Crystal and Eric, but my answer would probably be lowest hanging fruit, greater value to employers, probably cost. There's probably a formula for that.
Mhm.
But like if you have probably like 10, but I would probably let Crystal or Eric answer that. But yeah.
Yeah, Crystal, Eric, if you want to chime in. So once again, you can't consolidate anymore. You have these 10, top 10. You can't start all top 10 at the same time. It's going to be overwhelming, especially for smaller employers. It's going to be very overwhelming. How in your opinion, how should employers determine which ones? Let's say they say, okay, we can't do 10, we'll start with 3. What are those top 3? Like what, does it require going back to talking to your staff? Does it go back to looking at what is the mission, vision, and goals of the company and which ones align with it? Like, how do you make that determination?
Crystal, you want to start?
Yeah.
I'm
yeah,
still
me
thinking
too.
right now.
No, it's okay.
That's a good
It's okay.
question.
This is good. I mean, this is good rumbling, right? And I think these are common questions that a lot of companies have, like, how do you start? And I think it really just goes back to hearing from the employees. What is it that they are feeling the biggest gaps are? And if we have 10, right, like, then I think you have to do similar to what you said. How does this align with who we are as an organization? How does this align with who we are in how we support our community? Where are the biggest barriers? So I don't, again, I don't know that there is a perfect formula, but I think it's asking the question, it's getting the feedback from the employees, and where you find those biggest challenges and those barriers, start there and continue to pare that down. And it could take a couple years. Maybe the focus is on a couple of areas first, and maybe in year 2, phase 2 of the approach, you're going to evolve it to the next group, right? There's no system. It's really on how you can react to the responses that you've received from your employees, in my perspective.
Yeah, I think looking at it, in the sense, okay, let's say we boil it down to 10 different, items that we need to focus on. I think you try and pick maybe, like you said, 2 or 3 that are going to pick up, the following items underneath it then. So let's say, maybe employees or your workforce is talking about like, hey, we need more assistance with childcare. So maybe there's a childcare bucket that you develop or designate funds to within the employee resource group. And then, if you solve the childcare problem, maybe it helps within, maybe the wage and earnings behind it then, because it kind of piggybacks behind it. It's almost like a twofold, solution to the problem, because you're going to find, different unique solutions. And we even did that with, we increased our 401k match within our employees because they said, well, we don't have a pension program as a merit shop employer, but what can we offer, to have a higher 401k match on the employer side that will still help them save for retirement? And we do that no matter what, whether the employee puts in anything or not, but it helps them plan for the future. And maybe it's just one less thing, and it just helps with the job quality kind of all in. Does that kind of make sense a little bit? You're kind of solving
It
several
does.
problems as you
And
solve one.
that was, that was the answer that I was looking for. Thank you. Is maybe looking at, okay, which ones will help it make the segue into the other ones easier. Like start with the ones that are kind of that, the lead, and we'll make it, as you're working at completing and the other ones, it makes it easier. No, that's exactly
Yeah.
what I was
Yeah.
looking for.
Maybe
Thank you
if
so
you-
much.
Yeah, if you solve problem 2, maybe you solve problem 5 and 7 at the same time, because they're all kind of grouped together. That was kind of the point I was trying to get.
Okay. Thank you. So I
And
know
one
Amy,
thing I would just
Jean-
add on
yes,
is
go
that
ahead.
we're really hoping to find examples like this and best practices like this from employers for how did you get started and how did you find your way into trying to improve job quality? Because I think what we've really found is that those examples from employers are the best things to help other employers see how they can implement it themselves too. So we, as we're building out this work, we do really want to hear from folks about how you are implementing job quality, best practices you have, so that we can be building toolkits and building out these resources for others. Because so often, again, the employers are the ones that are really getting this figured out. And if we can help share those resources and their lessons learned, hopefully we can help people get to success faster too.
Thank you. Now I know Amy Keene, you did have your hand up, but didn't forget about you. You have an opportunity to ask your question if you still would like to.
I see she's unmuted, but I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I don't hear anything. You're unmuted. Okay, you mute yourself again. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, or you can put it in the chat.
Maybe while we're waiting, I did see one question that was in the chat that says, what is your best advice as a leader, business owner, or employer for managing individual employee issues and finding the best path to resolve them without compromising the well-being of the company or yourself?
Thank you, Katie.
From our behalf, our employee handbook is pretty much, our Bible, and, we do update it, annually every single year, but, we have a set of protocols and rules within there that when it comes to safety, we don't deviate from that. And but you got to stick to that protocol too at the same time. I mean, you can't, if you make exception for one, you're going to make exceptions for all, and you're not really going to be able to follow along the line. So, when it comes to employee issues like that, like we 100% follow the book on every single issue.
Okay. Well, all right. I guess we have a few minutes, so unless Amy doesn't want to join or unmute her mic or put the question in the chat, just for everyone here, any last minute thoughts, perspectives, advice that you have on this subject for your fellow employers or those on the call? I'll start with you, Katie, because you seem like you want to say something.
I don't. I just am appreciative of you highlighting this work today, and for Crystal and Eric to share your perspectives as well. This is, so much of what we want to do as the board is bring folks together to share best practices, learn from each other to help improve our workforce system and improve job quality for individuals and for employers too. So we just really appreciate you bringing us together today. I'll pass it to Kevion too, so we'll go in order of speaking maybe.
Yeah, I will echo that and just say that, again, we really are at a place where we're trying to incorporate as much feedback and input as possible as we move closer to launching these resources. So please reach out, please share your ideas after today's webinar. Consider joining our sector partnerships committee, or just, again, in general, engaging with the board. Would love to hear your feedback on this. So thank you. And I will pass it to Crystal.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me the time to speak and share my insights. I have one little note I can end on. I think that gives us all a warm and fuzzy. Some of the feedback we heard was regarding our benefits. So in 2023, we added a fertility assistance program through Progeny. And since then, 53 babies have been welcomed into the world. So, listen to your employees, see what their needs are. It helps. Maybe some of these employees will be children's employees down the line. Who knows? But really, really excited to share that. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Unfortunately, Crystal, I'm not going to be able to top that. So I do appreciate appreciate the conversation today. Really great to be able to hear, cross-sector partnerships here between Crystal and Katie and Kevion. So really great information, and I hope to see everybody on next month's as well.
Well, with that, Eric, Crystal, Katie, Kevion, and Shayla, who minimized herself, thank you so much for being a part of this panel today, for answering the questions, for giving, some good answers. I think, definitely it's information that those in the audience can take with them. And Kevion, as you mentioned, the Governor's Workforce Development Board, if they have questions about job quality, if they have advice, if they're small and they're like, what, we don't have the bandwidth, but we do know that this is important and we want to, incorporate this into our company, that they can reach out to either you or Katie to kind of get that start. So thank you so much. Thank you to the audience for being a part of this conversation, and for those that stayed all the way into the end. Once again, please join us for our next Workforce Wednesday, which will be in next month, April 4th. The registration will be sent out for that. And with that, have a good rest of your day, rest of your week,